So I got Terry Etherton here. We're having fun. I've known Terry for a zillion years. And so this is going to be really fun for me because I get to find out some stuff about the man and not just the photographs. And Terry was just telling me about Arizona Public Radio, right? Or public TV.
Arizona Illustrated.
Arizona Illustrated. Just tell me about that. That's interesting because people can go see a little bit on YouTube about what an expose that just came out on you, right?
Yeah, we have a show up now called Masters of 20th Century American Photography.
Which I went to, by the way. Fantastic.
I
will tell you that was a very interesting show.
That show came about because it's our 30th anniversary in the space we're in right now.
Yeah, wow.
Downtown. We have been in business 37 years, so we thought for our 30th anniversary in that space, we would sort of bring out a collection of things that really represent who we are. Channel 6 is, they're part of our regular emailing list, and they thought that would make a good story. So Andrew Brown, who works for Arizona Public Media, did a piece on me, and it was more than just about the show. He kind of followed me around, having breakfast at Beeline, things like that. And what I didn't know is my staff found some pretty embarrassing pictures of me. I'm
going to see if I can get some of these, and I'll put them up on the YouTube.
There was one of me. I'm 18 years old in the Army, and then
I'm going to definitely get that.
24 years old, I'm in San Francisco, and then these embarrassing 80s pictures with mustaches and short shorts. Well,
And hair?
Yeah, a lot more hair, a hell of a lot more hair, and facial hair. And at first I was kind of embarrassed by that, but then I realized everybody has those pictures from the 80s, right?
Yeah, no.
So after I looked at it a couple of times, I thought, who cares? And everybody else seemed to think it was funny, so whatever. It exists. It's out there.
Yeah, staff, if you're out there, I need those photos for the YouTube video.
My wife and I watched this in real time, and I didn't know that was going to happen, and I was like, oh, my God, where did they find those pictures? Well, I know where they did, so I'm good with it now. It's fine.
So you decide to have a 30th anniversary. Why in July?
Well, I don't know about you, Mark, but the days of summer being dead in Tucson are long gone.
That's true. You had a full house.
I mean, you saw that the other night,
full
right?
house.
Well, we had our opening for that show on June 9th. It was absolutely packed.
Wow.
We had a very busy June. I mean, we've had a lot of foot traffic in there. I think there are just more people in Tucson now. More people are moving here.
Yeah.
There are people, you probably experience this too, a lot of our winter visitors are staying longer.
Yes.
Or they're coming back in the summer, just for a couple of weeks. Plus, a lot of the resorts here are a fraction of what they are during the season. So you see families coming and staying because you can stay at the Arizona Inn for $100. So there's a lot of people in town.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that. In fact, because I want to find out why you ended up in Tucson. But first, I want to find out how in the hell you just grew up. I don't know. I knew you grew up in Iowa, right?
No, close.
Southern
Illinois. Southern Illinois.
There's a difference between those two states?
Yeah, for sure.
I grew up in
All
Carbondale. Oh yeah, I
it's
actually
a
know where that is.
Small town with a big university. Southern Illinois University.
I know
right?
exactly
the
where that
Salukis.
is. Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Salukis an Egyptian dog. So I grew up there. Went to high school there. Graduated in the summer of '69. Got drafted out of high school because my parents had moved to Atlanta that May, and I didn't go with them. And I stayed back, and my only goal that summer was to go to Woodstock. That's all I cared about. So this is June of '69.
So what was your hair like at that point? Long, medium?
Well, I was just out of high school, so it wasn't, it hadn't gotten really long yet. But
you knew about Woodstock.
I knew about Woodstock, and all I wanted to do is go to Woodstock and then come back in the fall and go to Southern Illinois University.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with that was that if you had to get a deferment, you had to have been accepted, by the end of June, and I didn't know. Nobody told me that. So in the middle of July, I got drafted.
Oh my God!
Because I had no deferment, right? And so that happened, and I ended up going in the Army for.
Did you make Woodstock?
I did not make Woodstock because I was in basic training at the time that happened. I got sent to Fort Ord, California. So fortunately for me, it worked out. I got out of the Army, in June of '71. Had the GI Bill, went back to Southern Illinois University.
And where did you go when you were in the Army?
I went to, I had a weird story. I ended up getting drafted, sent to Fort Ord, California. And I'd never been on a jet before, right, let alone there. So they sent us to Fort Ord. I went through basic training. I went through infantry training there. I got orders for Vietnam and sent home on a 30-day leave.
And you were 18,
I was
19?
18.
Yeah, okay.
At the time I was 18. By the time I got orders for Vietnam, I was 19 now
Yeah.
because I was born in February of 51.
Right.
So I'm 19 years old. I'm home, trying to figure out what to do. My parents had gone through a horrible year. My brother was there through 1968 and the Tet Offensive and all that
Oh,
stuff.
my.
So this was really a kind of a stressful time for
And
us.
he survived that?
He did survive that without any problems. But, I saw what that put my parents through, what it
Right.
put all of us through,
Right.
right? And so I was considering all kinds of options. And while I was considering those options, I ended up getting a telegram and a phone call about 2 weeks into my leave. And they said, your division, the 1st Infantry Division, mechanized, is being reassigned to Fort Riley, Kansas. This is February of 1970. Nixon's president. This is the first pullouts. The division I'm assigned to is being reassigned to their home base. So they said, you have 48 hours to get there, and you'll be reassigned to another division. So my leave was over. I went there, got put in what's called a holding company, and every day, people we'd go out in formation, and orders would come, people on my left, on my right, but not me. And this went on for 6 or 7 weeks. And finally, they decided to train me and to do something. So they trained me as a ground surveillance radar operator, which is not really something you want to do in Vietnam either. Meanwhile, I'm trying to I was volunteering to go to Korea just to avoid Vietnam. But
Right.
what happened, because they were winding down then, and because my brother had been there, my odds of started going, every day I didn't go, my odds were going down and
Right.
down. And once you got in, you had less than a year left, you weren't going to go.
Right, and you
So-
were getting close to that.
But what else happened was, if you recall, in December of '69, the lottery system went into effect.
Oh, I remember.
Now, I'm already in the Army, right? It's
Right.
too late for me. I drew a really high number. So I missed that, too. So the timing was weird. But, at the end of the day, I ended up in Kansas. I went to Germany on a big NATO exercise
Yeah.
thing, and I got out and I was fine, so it worked out fine. And it was good because I started college. I was 20. I had been to California. I'd
Yeah,
been to
you
Europe.
lived.
I was ready to go to school.
Now, when you did all this, were you thinking about art or photography at that point in time? Had you?
Not a bit. In fact, my family, the art was not a part of our family.
Yeah, what did your family do? What are your mom
My
and dad
dad
did?
was sort of in and out of all different kinds of real estate things and property management, mostly dorms, because Southern Illinois University has a lot of dorms.
Yeah,
so
huge number.
that's kind of what he did. My mom really never worked. We had 5 kids, so
Yeah.
she was at home.
And where were you in that rotation?
Second oldest. I had a
Yeah.
brother who was 3.5 years older than me, who died in 1982.
Yeah, that's
in
the
a
guy
car
that
accident.
went to Vietnam.
Yeah. And I have 3 younger sisters, so who all live in Atlanta or the
So
Atlanta area.
so there wasn't like a family business your dad wanted you to come back to?
Nothing like that.
Yeah, he just wanted you to have a good job.
Yeah, they were supportive of whatever I wanted
That's
to do.
good.
I mean, with you have 5 kids, we were sort of barely middle class. We didn't know it. We thought everything was great. I had a great childhood.
Yeah.
Growing up in Carbondale was wonderful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, having the university there, there was a lot of diversity. So I was used to growing up around all different kinds of ethnic groups.
And did you get exposure to art through the university at all, or was that really just a
it
non-starter?
really kind of happened when I was in the Army.
I see.
And what happened was they had at Fort Riley, Kansas, where I ended up, they had a darkroom there and nobody used it. It was just there, and I could buy paper and developer. And I started messing around there, and that was sort of the first time I really got interested in photography. And then when I got out of the Army, I became a cinema and photography major at Southern Illinois University and got a degree in that. So I came at my business from an artist's point of view, not a business.
And you wanted to make films?
Yeah. Well, what happened is I graduated from SIU and moved to San Francisco. Let me back up a little. The reason I went to San Francisco was because I was at Fort Ord through basic and infantry training, and
Right.
we used to hitchhike up to San Francisco on the weekends to buy pot, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to say that, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's okay
You can say
now.
whatever you want. This is,
Well, it's true. And so, being 18, 19 years old in San Francisco, I was
right.
like,
And this is 69, early 70?
right.
Yeah.
And I said, I told myself, I'm moving here someday. This is where I want to live.
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up there, because I really wanted to go back there. And I spent almost 10 years there.
So you had your degree in cinematography. You went back to San Francisco. This is 73-ish?
Yes. And I ended up working for almost 7 years for a company called Magus Productions. And they were a film company that did training and industrial films and documentary work. And I ended up through a whole series of things, owning my own 16 millimeter equipment. So I would get hired on a day rate or a week rate or a project rate to shoot, and I became a really good cameraman. This is when everything was shot in film. Everything that I did then, you would shoot in video. Now you wouldn't even think about shooting film.
Right.
So I managed to make a living, but the problem was when you're in that field, it's a very schizophrenic lifestyle, because I would work for 5 or 6 months every day and then nothing for 2 months because I was waiting for the funding for the next project. And I couldn't really go out and do anything else because I had to be ready. So what happened, because of that lifestyle, I would have a month or two between projects, and I would fly to Tucson to visit high school friends of mine who had moved here in the early 70s. And while they were off to work, I would go to the Center for Creative Photography. So that's how I ended up in Tucson, because I loved that. And I knew a little bit about photography, and I knew all the people, the Bay Area photography community there, both photographers and some galleries. So, that's how I ended up here.
And who would you look? Was there a particular photographer that was in the Center of Creative Photography that you really liked, that you go?
Well, I remember coming down here like early on in 76, 77. And Ansel Adams walked through. This was when the center was the little building on University, right? And I'd lived in San Francisco. I never had access to these people. Imogen Cunningham would be there, Wynn Bullock, and because their archives were there, right?
Right. And both of those people, all those people came in the door that you got to see, meet, and talk to?
Yeah, in Tucson, and I couldn't believe that they were just there in this little bank building. So I knew something big was happening there.
Yeah.
And as you know, it's become a huge thing. And it's a big part of the reason that I'm in Tucson and not Phoenix, because the center was here, and that as a resource was a really valuable thing. And I also knew that even though the center was new, that it was going to become something really big, and it did pretty quickly, which means that a lot of people in the photo world were making trips to Tucson to do research. So I thought, this is the place to be. Plus, I just really like Tucson.
And did you get to talk to Ansel Adams or Imogen Cunningham?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what was that like?
Well, I'd met Ansel before because I'd been an assistant at workshops at Friends Photography. So I can't say I knew him well, but we were acquainted, and I told him what I was doing, and he was very encouraging.
Did Maynard Dixon ever come up in that conversation? He had come out here to visit Dixon on a couple of different times and took photos of him, which I have some.
I never remember discussing
I'm sure
Maynard Dixon with him. I don't even know if I knew who Maynard Dixon was at the
you
time.
might not have.
I do
you
now.
now? Yeah, okay. There
of course I do. Are you kidding?
And Imogen Cunningham, interestingly enough, was involved with Maynard Dixon as well. And she had basically kind of introduced Maynard Dixon to Dorothea Lange. She had told Dorothea Lange about Maynard Dixon, because Dorothea Lange had heard this footsteps going up near her studio, and who was that high-heeled guy? And she goes, "Oh, that's Maynard Dixon. You need to meet him. I think he would be a good fit." And also, when they were getting divorced, when Maynard Dixon was getting divorced from Dorothea Lange confided into Imogen Cunningham that I'm leaving Maynard Dixon for Paul Taylor. And she goes, "My God, have you told Maynard?" And she said, and Dorothea said, "Well, Maynard was his idea." So, so there's a connection between those people and you. And so what was Imogen Cunningham like?
Well, I already knew her a little bit. Not well, but I used to go to City Lights bookstore in San Francisco, Ferlinghetti's place, and all of the beat people, that's, about City Lights. And they had poetry readings, and Imogen Cunningham lived on Green Street there in North Beach, and you would just see her there, and you couldn't miss her because she was rather eccentric in the way she dressed, and she wore a great big peace medal. She often had a camera around her neck, so she was just sort of a fixture in the neighborhood. So I was acquainted with her before I moved to Tucson.
And how old would she have been at that time?
90.
Yeah, wow.
She lived to be 93.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it was great. I living in San Francisco, I got to meet a lot of people there that were important when I opened the gallery here. Like the first year, I showed a number of Bay Area photographers because I knew them from my years there, and I had a good relationship with a couple of the photo galleries that had opened in the late 70s, who kind of mentored me when I opened the gallery. They told me they actually consigned material. And they gave me a little, some ideas about design.
Right. And what year was that you opened your gallery here?
1981.
And so what made you go, okay, I'm in film, I've got a job, I'm making money, I'm going to dump it all and I'm going to open a gallery? What was that impetus that says I want to do a gallery and sell stuff?
Believe it or not, Mark, it was incredibly impulsive with no plan.
I believe that, actually.
Well, I started because I was in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I used to like join like Friends Photography. Then you'd get these prints as a sustaining member, and I started like buying like cheap stuff at auctions at Butterfield's, and I started, I just sort of liked the idea and the activity of having photographs. And I started hanging around photo galleries, and they'd let me look at stuff, and then they would invite me to openings when people would come, and I'd get them to sign my book. So that whole activity, I really, really liked it. I never really thought I was going to open a photo gallery, and I did it quite impulsively. I was sitting at the Egg Garden on 4th Avenue, there by the Dairy Queen. It's now Mr. Head's, and I was sitting there having breakfast one morning, and I kind of looked diagonally across the street, and there was a for rent sign in the building over there, a little storefront, and I went over and looked at it, and I called the guy, and it turns out he's the guy that owns Caruso, Sal Zagona. And he said, well, come around the corner and talk to me. And I said, how much? And he said, it's $235 a month, includes all utilities. I just said, okay, I'll do it. I gave him a deposit. And
what year was this?
81.
In 1981. And
summer of 81.
And you had actually moved to Tucson at this point?
Had not.
You were still in San Francisco? You were just visiting?
I had not moved. I was here
Were
visiting.
you married yet?
No, but I had a girlfriend, a wonderful girlfriend, who probably deserved better. But I went home to San Francisco, and I told her, I said, hey, I just signed a lease on a place, we're moving to Tucson. And she said to me, you're moving to Tucson.
Yeah.
She did not want to come to Tucson, and she didn't.
Yeah.
So now I'm committed, and I look back on that and I feel bad about that, but we're still friends.
And how long was the lease for? Do you remember when the...
I think it was just a year at the most,
And you just said, I take it right on the spot.
I said, I'll take it right on the spot. Now, I knew in the Bay Area that was never going to happen. Even then, it was just crazy expensive to have a space. So for $235, I thought, I'll put $5,000 into lighting it and, carpeting it, and I'll just put pictures on the wall and people come and buy them. How hard can that be, right? I mean,
yeah, I remember.
Well, that's what I thought.
It's not, right?
No, and people, now
listen to this, people out there.
I've been interviewed a lot lately because of our 30th anniversary and all, and I keep getting asked, well, what was your business plan? And I said, I don't even know what a business plan looks like.
Yeah.
And if I did,
you may not yet.
I wouldn't have done it, because if I'd sat down and said, well, let me see what this really looks like.
Right.
I would have definitely not done that.
And how old were you at this time, Terry?
30.
So you were 30 years old.
Yeah.
You made your decision. I'm going to be a gallerist. Did you think I'll also make some other money if I have to doing...
No.
No, you just said, that's it.
I just thought, how hard can this be?
Right.
Right? It's really cheap to live in Tucson.
Yeah, and $230 is not...
If I can't come up with that,
yeah,
right?
This is early 80s, 82?
81.
81.
Summer of 81. And so, anyway, so I just thought that this would be... I mean, I knew a little bit about a lot of things. I knew about graphic design. I knew how to mat stuff. I knew, I always paid a lot of attention to lighting for whatever reason.
And were you making photos of your own at this point?
I was.
Yeah.
Pretty seriously until about 83 or 4, and then the business became more important, and I sort of gave that all up. But yeah, I did, and I've got work in museums and stuff. I've got a piece in the Center for Creative Photography show right now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That they got from me in 83.
Wow.
I mean, I totally forgot about it, and they told me it was in the show, and I was nervous because I made that print in 1883, and I hadn't seen it since.
Wow.
Looks good.
So
still looks good.
What was the image of?
It's a picture. I used to do these. Well, I'll back up a little bit. One of the things that got me through those first few years, nobody told me about summer in Tucson.
Yeah.
So,
hot.
And back then, with evaporative cooling and no internet and no cell phones and nobody coming in the gallery, it was crazy, right?
Right.
So I realized pretty quickly that I was going to have to, if I wanted to see a curator, I was going to have to go see them physically. They weren't going to come see me. This was also before the big spread of art fairs, right? So there's no art fairs, there's no internet. The only way to see somebody is to get in the car and go see them.
Right.
So I started off the first 3 summers, like 6 to 7 week trips where I would take a map. I would take the Eastman House Guide to Photographic Collections, which listed every public collection, who they had in the collection, how many prints, and the phone number of the curator. And I would take a Major League Baseball schedule and a calendar. And so the routine was, I'm going to be in Houston, the Astros are in town, I want to see Ann Tucker. So my trip would be sort of based on trying to see as many baseball parks as I could.
And because you're a baseball fan. Apparently.
Yes, and at the same time visiting curators.
And what was your hope to do when you visited a curator?
Sell enough to get to the next place, and that happened.
And so you would also come with a bunch of photos in your car?
Yep. Boxes
Framed
and boxes and a
unframed?
dolly, and I would wheel it into an office and show, a curator. And what would happen inevitably, like in Houston, for example, I would be showing the work to the curator there, and she'd say, well, can you stick around? I want to call a couple people. So she'd call a couple people on her board or something, who would buy something from me. So it seemed easy. I mean, it was like I wasn't making a lot of sales, but I was making enough to get to the next place, and I was meeting people face to face.
And do you think the reason that this was successful is because of your connection in San Francisco, and you could get some of those really well-known Bay City photographers? That's really what
that was super helpful. But also, for example, our mutual friend Andrew Smith,
right?
He was in Albuquerque at the time, and I stopped in and met him, and he was so generous. He said, well, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to Tampa, and then I'm going all the way up the East Coast. And he goes, you're going to be in St. Louis? Yeah, I'll take this and call this guy. So he gave me material and the name of the person to sell it to.
Yeah, wow.
So that's how...
Andrew Smith is a photography dealer who is in Santa Fe, who's probably going to move to Tucson.
Absolutely.
So we're excited to have Andrew here. We'll have two of the top photography dealers in the country right in Tucson, Arizona.
But that's how I started my business, Mark. And a lot of those curators are still around, like Keith Davis at the Nelson Atkins, and Ann Tucker and Sandy Phillips. And I mean, it was
are they
amazing.
still buying photos from you?
Yeah. Especially Keith Davis at the Nelson Atkins. It's been my best client
And
ever.
some of those photos that you had and were selling, what would have been the price range at that time, and then what would it be now?
It's funny. The Center for Creative Photography has the Etherton Gallery Archive, and one of the things we've been giving them is financial records. And I was looking back at, like in 1982, I did a road trip, and I had Harry Callahan's work on consignment from Grape State Gallery. Those were in San Francisco. Those were $400 a piece retail, and she was giving me 40%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
And what are they worth now?
Oh, 15 to 20,000.
Yeah.
I mean, but
did you keep any for yourself?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, there you go.
I kept some. I didn't keep a lot, but I, the best stuff's the stuff that's easiest to sell.
Yeah. And do you collect stuff for your own collection, photography?
All dealers are collectors, because...
Well, you listen to David Adler's podcast, and he says, well, he doesn't really keep much. He sells it all. I'm with you. And
here's the way I look at it is
clearly.
All that stuff I haven't sold is part of my own collection.
Okay.
Or will be, right?
Yeah.
So,
but are there specific pieces you go that comes in and you go, my God, I want this. This is what I've been looking for. I'm taking it home, even though it's a hard one to let go because you can sell it immediately.
Most people think that, oh my God, you must have this incredibly valuable collection in your house. It's not true. What I have in my house are works by artists that I have a personal connection to.
Yes.
They're not necessarily the most valuable, but they mean something to me because I've had a relationship with this person. So, and it's not just photography. It's, Luis Jimenez.
I was going to say,
like
and so Luis, let's just talk about that since we're here on Luis Jimenez, who is a very important sculptor and artist that did the big Denver museum or Denver airport horse, which actually ended up killing him. But you were good friends with him. Maybe you can just expound on that because it's a very interesting story. I think
he was an important person in my life because we opened the new space where I am now in October of '88 with a one-person Luis Jimenez show.
Wow, how
it was a
important
huge
that?
show.
Yeah,
you
that's
saw
amazing.
it. If you look at the PBS video, there's video of that I didn't even know existed. And you'll see we had like 12-foot fiberglass sculptures and drawings and prints and maquettes. We had everything.
And how'd you meet him?
I met him through Lou Bernal, who was a photography teacher at Pima. I don't know, probably, in the mid-'80s, and I started getting things from him. I went to visit him in Hondo a number of times. I really liked Luis a whole lot. He was a great guy. He was difficult to work with because he was extremely unreliable. Whenever you planned something with Luis, you had to add a whole bunch of time to it.
I see.
The Denver Mustang, for example, is 13 years late.
Right.
And it got done, but he wasn't around to see it get done. So.
Yeah, because he was working on it and actually fell on him, a part of it, and killed him, right?
And he used to joke and say, "This is the piece that's going to kill me," and it literally did.
Yeah, that's
But
amazing.
we did a number of shows with Luis, and I loved him to death. He was one of the more creative people I've ever met. It just oozed out. He'd be sitting around at lunch and just drawing on napkins and stuff.
Wow.
And I said, "Can I have that?" He was also, Luis was generous to a fault. He would come into the gallery all the time and he'd have like 3 or 4 new prints and he'd just leave them. I said, "Well, wait a minute, wait. don't you want me to like sign for that? And he'd say, no, we know each other. We'll just trade it. And then 2 days later, his wife would call me and go, well, what did he leave?
Right.
You know, because she was trying to like follow around and clean up his messes.
Right.
So when he died, you can imagine.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
She had to like get everybody together and say, well, what do you have? Because she really didn't know exactly, because he would just give people stuff.
Now, the big piece that they have at TMA, Tucson Museum of Art, were you involved in that big sculpture?
No, they got that, I guess, in the 70s, actually. And the UAMA has a big piece, too. No, I had nothing to do with either one of those pieces.
But you had your first major show at the new gallery 30 years ago for Luis Jimenez.
That's how we opened.
And you had, wow, I don't know.
It was a big, splashy opening. It was kind of incredible. We had Channel 4 came and did a live remote. I mean, it was a big deal.
Were you, so he's not really known as a photographer, but you're a photo dealer for the most part?
Yeah.
At least at that point.
I think that a lot of people think that we're just photography people, and there's a couple reasons for that. I started off that way because that was my background. But we quickly started showing prints and other things. And once we moved into our space now, then because we have those 16-foot ceilings, we started showing big things. So right now, we show probably as much photography as we do other media. Also, I do 3 or 4 art fairs a year, and those are typically photo fairs. So people that see us on the road know us as a photography gallery.
Right.
So that there's the perception that we're mostly photography, and that really is my background, and it's the strength of what we do, but it's not everything we do.
Yeah, and let's talk about those photo shows, because I know you do a lot. In fact, if you go to your Facebook site, and I encourage people to follow him, and it really is interesting, because I live vicariously through your photo shows, because you do one in Paris, New York, and LA, at least those, and there may be more.
Right now, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so how did that evolve, and when did you start doing those, and how has that been important to your business?
In 1985, I joined APAD, which was the Association of International Photography Art Dealers. It was a fledgling little organization then of about 40 dealers, and we existed largely to do a photo fair every year. It used to be at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York, which is a horrible place. I joined in '85, and I did my first fair with them in Houston. And I've done that fair every year since. So I've done that fair, 33 years in a row now?
Yeah.
Since then, there's just been a proliferation of art fairs. I mean, the whole Miami thing happened, and APAD's still going on. I'm still doing that. That's every April in New York. About 6 or 7 years ago, we did Perry Photo Los Angeles, which was a Perry Photo, or it's Paris Photo. It's been around for about 22 years, and they've done fairs in Paris. It's like the Super Bowl of photo shows. I mean, they get 65,000 people at the Grand Palais. It's crazy, hard to get in. We kind of got in the back door because they decided to try to do something in the U.S. and they decided it'd be a good idea to do it at Paramount Studios in L.A. Good idea, right? It's kind of sexy. It's at
Seems
Paramount.
like it, yeah.
You know, in the first year it was, we got in that show, and we put on a show there that generated a whole bunch of press for the show. So we were immediately kind of in their good graces. That show, though, kind of the next year, they just didn't manage it very well, and by the third year, a lot of the better dealers had left. And part of the problem was that they came to L.A. with nobody on the ground, no Americans on the ground. They thought they could do it all themselves, just based on their brand. And they didn't look, for example, the first year, the parking situation was a nightmare because they just didn't bother to ask, like, oh, you can't park on Melrose from 4 to 6. That's they didn't even ask about that. So it died a natural death. But what happened was, because they loved what we did for those 3 years, then we applied for Paris, and we got in immediately.
And so you've been doing that for how long now?
This year will be our third year.
So when you do that show, and there's 65,000 people that come through, right?
Yep.
A couple questions. One, how do you get all the material there, and how is that difficult?
No.
No
It's
problems
expensive.
with customs or any of that stuff?
Yes and no. I mean, it's not that different than shipping anywhere else. We have a shipper, and they do the customs and do all that kind of stuff. Everything in France, though, is way more complicated than anybody else. For example, going into Perry Photo, you have to provide a list of absolutely everything you're sending, including the screwdrivers in your toolkit, and value all of it. And it has to be given to customs beforehand, and it has to have a value on it. And if they come through your booth and they see that something's priced differently on the wall than you told them, then they can fine you the difference. or they can go through your crate at the end, and if anything that's not in there, they're going to charge you a VAT on it. So that's kind of a threat. They do that every once in a while, but it's more
What
of a
happens
threat.
if you buy photos for your inventory? You see something. How do you deal with that?
That's different.
Yeah.
I mean, that's different. I mean, you have to, if you put it in the crate, you need to tell them what you're doing.
Yes.
Because if they go through there and they see that and it's not on their list, then there can be consequences.
And if it's an artist from France, you have to pay them a residual too, right? If it sells.
Here's how crazy it is, Mark. So I don't know if this is true of any other European country, but it is in France.
Yeah.
For example, if if you sell anything there, if somebody walks away with something,
Right.
you have to charge a VAT, and then you have to pay the French government that VAT. The VAT varies depending on what it is you're selling. If something is an edition of 30 or less, it's taxed higher than if it's at 30 or more. They have this arbitrary idea that if it's over 30,
valuable.
it's not art, and if it's under 30, it is. I mean, I
So
don't
do
know.
you bring only things that have editions of 35, over 30?
Everything's 29. Or it's there's ways around it, but the other thing is that if you sell something to somebody who's a member of the EU,
Yes.
of the European Union, it's taxed differently than if they're not. So
What happens with Britain?
This is just this whole well, right now they're still a member of the
Yeah.
EU.
Okay.
So last year that was a factor because we had people take things that were from one of the Eastern Bloc countries that are not members of the EU, and we had to charge them more if they took it.
Does that kill a deal?
It can, but in this case it didn't.
Yeah.
In most cases, what we did is just take everything back and ship it.
Yeah.
Because we were selling small things, and you could FedEx envelope it there, so it wasn't a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But it is complicated there, and there are a lot of rules and a lot of things that don't happen elsewhere. Our crates got hung up in customs last year too for almost a month.
Wow.
Because here's how bad. So there was bad weather in Atlanta, right? That backed up the entire system. The people that we had contracted with to put our crates on a plane didn't have a backup plan. So now the crates are sitting there, and they've got to find a commercial airliner to put it on, and they're trying to do it on the cheap by sending everything to New York and then sending it all out.
Right.
So for 2 weeks I was on the phone saying, "Where are my crates? Where are my crates?" They said they haven't cleared customs, and it was terrible. And I finally figured out a way. I said, "Well, why don't you just send them to L.A.? Why do you have to send them to New York?" So that's in fact what ended up happening. They didn't want to send them to LA. They wanted to consolidate it because it cut into their profit if they all of a sudden had to custom ship everything back.
And how close were you to not having any inventory for that show?
Well, I mean, it was the inventory. It was coming back.
Oh, it was your inventory coming
but
back.
we had made a lot of sales, and people were waiting for this stuff, and we're telling them we don't have our crates back. We don't have our crates back.
Right.
That can happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's part of the art dealer game, right? You have to take these into consideration, and it's part of the things that you don't expect to happen, but when it does, you have to.
Well, as you get experienced in these things, you plan ahead,
Yeah.
and you build in a little bit of contingencies in case things don't get there. So I tend to get everything out early, and I also don't make promises to people that I might not be able to keep about when they're going to get their material. Now that's just doing non-U.S. shows. In the U.S., it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah. So you have 65,000 people that come through.
Yeah.
And you deal with famous, unique individuals that walk through the door. You must, right?
Paris is like no other show on earth. I mean, every major curator from every European country comes. Collectors from virtually every country. We sold to 10 different countries last year.
Wow.
Mostly French, but also Germans and Danish and
Yeah.
Italians and English. I mean, it was crazy. They come to this show in droves. People wait in line for 3 hours to get in on the weekend.
That's incredible.
It isn't. I mean, there's a line down the street out.
And do you bring staff?
Yeah, I bring my wife, who works the shows with me, and then
Right.
I bring one other person. Those shows, you can't do it with 2 people. You need 3. I see people that do it. I don't know how they do it, because there's never less than 30 or 40 people in your booth, ever.
Wow. And you're just talking the whole time, explaining
constantly.
and writing up sales. And so it's worth it, clearly, to do the show.
Definitely it's worth it.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. It's not just that we go there, and last year we made some money, but the people you meet there, now you have a face-to-face contact. They know who we are. For us to be from Tucson, Arizona, and be on that stage in Paris with Gagosian and Zwerner and Hauser and Werthel, these are people that do the show.
Right.
I'm in the same building with them. I might even be next to them.
Right. And they're all doing photos as well?
Yeah, in that particular fair.
Yeah.
Most of those big galleries have some photo. and they do Perry Photo because that's the best photography show in the world, bar none.
So it's as much as getting the leads and making contacts and relationships as it is actually making the sales.
Yeah, because I'm in Tucson, right? So
Right.
I mean, the great thing is last year we had a really funny thing happen last year. You look down this row, right, and it's like galleries from Berlin, Belgium,
Right.
Spain, and then Tucson, and it just said Etherton, Tucson, didn't say Arizona or USA.
Right.
And so we would get people coming in the booth, and they would start speaking to us in Italian.
Yeah.
Because my wife's Italian for one thing.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
so they just assumed we were from Tuscany. And they said, why don't you have any Italian work? I said, well, why would I have Italian work? Well, I said, no, it's Tucson. So it's
That's
funny
a funny
because
story.
I've been thinking about going to the city of Tucson and asking them to help subsidize what we're doing there, because if you think about it, we are putting the Tucson out in front of all of these people that
it's
don't
true.
know about it. And I speak very highly of Tucson because I love it here. So I think that they should pay for my booth because I'm doing the work of promoting Tucson, right?
Yeah, well, if you can make that fly good.
Well,
then tell them I've got one for Santa Fe I would like to do as well. I'd like
But
them
I mean,
to
we're in
promote
New York,
that.
we're in LA, and these
Oh, I agree.
these places, they produce catalogs, they have a
Yeah,
website.
it's true.
All these people see that, and especially in Paris, where people go, "Where's Tucson? What's Tucson like?" So I'm telling them all the reasons to come here, and
so
some
what,
of them do.
What kind of photos do you bring? Do you specifically bring it for that venue? In other words, more European photos or classic photos by the best known,
Well,
Ansel
in
Adams,
Paris,
Dorothea
the
Lange
last
kind of
2
stuff?
years we've done solo shows.
Ah.
So 2 years ago we did a one-person Danny Line show, and it was because he had a great big retrospective that was in Zurich at the time. And
I
it was
see.
about to go to Berlin. So we kind of piggybacked onto that, and he's one of our more important artists. So we did a solo show that year. Then the following year,
Was it successful?
It was.
I mean, to me, that would be. It's always a little risky when you go. I'm all in with one artist because.
I'll tell you a funny story about this, though. So this was in November of 2016. We all know what happened then, right? So we're in Paris when the election happened with a Danny Line show. And that Tuesday, the election happened, right? And I got up the next morning and was getting ready to go to the fair, and it's kind of out of the corner of my eye watching CNN, and I thought it was Saturday Night Live. I didn't believe it. And I found out it was real, and it was just like a ton of bricks hit me, and now I have to go to work and have to deal with this, and I knew it was going to be odd. So I get to my booth, it's like 10 a.m., and there's a film crew waiting for me in my booth, with cameras and lights and makeup people. I was like, what's this all about? And they said, well, we would really like to talk to you about your booth. And I said, why my booth? They said, you have the most quintessential American booth here.
Yeah.
I said, okay, fair enough. So they get everything set up, and they put a mic on me, and this woman says to me, first thing is out of her mouth, she goes, well, given just what happened in the American election, how do you think that's going to affect Perry Photo and the photo world in general, photo market in general?
That was your first
question. And I was
question?
like, what? I took the microphone off. I said, I learned about this an hour ago, first of all.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
I said, if you want to talk about this show or this artist, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And they ended up doing that. Not only them, but another crew came back later in the day for the same reason, and I refused to talk about it, but they did a story anyway, and it ended up on the French television that night.
In Paris.
I never saw it,
Yeah.
but a lot of people did.
But did you end up getting sales out of that people would come to find out about this artist?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we did. Because people came in, they go, oh, I saw you on TV last night.
I had a similar experience with 9/11. I was doing the LA art show, and it was the day that it was that 9/11 happened. I was supposed to fly out that morning, and I was like, oh, I guess that's not happening. You don't know what's going on. You're in a complete, mess. So I took a van instead. I drove everything out, came out, and went out there. And very odd experience trying to, because no one knew what was going to happen but amazingly we were still able to sell art. I think there's solace sometimes in art. And we were able to make sales, but I didn't know if I would, you just don't know. And that's the thing, as in the art world, and you can, you've had this happen, you're in a major show, you spend a ton of money going to Paris, and you don't know if you're not going to make a single sale. And that can be what does a big show cost?
Well, it was weird,
30 grand, 40 grand?
Oh, more. Paris cost us about 60 grand.
Yes.
And that's for a 30 square meter booth.
Right.
I mean, that concludes shipping.
Right.
The good thing about Paris that time of the year, those Airbnbs are great. I mean, you can get a killer place for $150.
Yeah.
And getting over there is not all that expensive. Shipping is. Shipping costs a lot. and the fare costs a lot. But it's about $60,000 to do it the way we do it. So that's money put down before you've made
That's
a
right.
dime, and there's no guarantee you're going to make any money.
Right.
But after the election happened the next day, we were telling people that, I know you're depressed. The best thing to do is buy something. You just spend some money, you'll feel better.
That's the sales part, folks, because there really is.
I ended up having to get my wife and Daphne, who was with me, to not talk about it because it ended up being the dominant thing that was discussed. And I said, that's not why we're here.
Yeah, that's right.
We can't talk. If somebody asks you about it, just don't talk about it.
Yeah, you got to focus on why you got to focus.
Yeah, and fortunately, that looking back on that now, I'm really glad I had that fair to do because it was a serious distraction. I had a mission. I had something I had to do.
Right.
Otherwise, I probably would have just gone to a bar and drank myself crazy. But I had a job to do. And I had to do it well. So.
And so, when did you marry your wife? We haven't talked about her, and she's going to be listening to this podcast. I think we should bring her in. We know she speaks
1987.
Italian. Yeah, okay.
1987.
And she's a Tucsonian or no?
No, she's from upstate New York. She grew up in a town called Auburn, which is on one of the Finger Lakes. It's about a half hour from Syracuse. So she grew up in that kind of snow belt of upstate New York.
So you've had a gallery now for 4 or 5 years. Let's say your first show was in '83.
About 3 years after that.
Yeah.
I met her on kind of a blind date.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, we're having a kid. And we did everything in reverse. We had a child together first. Then we got married. And then we bought a house in that order. And I highly recommend that.
Yep.
Because, if you can have a child and a year and a half later you're still together, there's no reason not to get married.
Yeah.
And then you might as well, you're in it for the long run. So then we bought a house.
We waited 7 years.
Wow.
before
After children?
Before we had children, no.
Oh.
We waited. I went to a buddy's house, and he had a 4-year-old kid, and he just ran in circles the whole time of our meal with my friends, and Kathleen and I both looked at it and said, no way. That stopped us for another 5 or 6 years.
This happened kind of unexpectedly for us, obviously, but it worked out great. It couldn't have worked out any better, actually. I mean, we're still together after all these years, and she's been a really big part of the gallery. Not as that she works there, but she's been there, supporting it, and she's done pretty much every art fair we've done.
Yeah, that's hard. Those are really hard things too.
And all of my colleagues love her.
Yeah.
I mean, she's good friends with a lot of the wives. So the photo world's a really collegial situation. I mean, a lot of us have grown up together. We've known each other for a long time. Our families have known each other. It's different in the general art world, which is much bigger. The photo world, I mean, you can comprehend the whole thing. You can comprehend the history of the medium, and you know who all the major players are.
How many major players are there in the photo world?
Probably about 150. I mean, you
Really?
know, and I'm including in that galleries that are not really photo galleries like Gagosian and Swarner, people like that, because they have major artists who are photographers. But that's not very many. There are way more dealers than that.
And that's for the whole expanse of photos, from contemporary things being done now to antique, vintage kind of material.
I mean, there may be more than that. Like, I can't possibly know about all the galleries in Asia, for example. I mean, who knows? I mean, there's lots. But what I do know is the people that exhibit with us either in Paris or in New York. And, Paris, there's about 220 galleries there. Now, some of them are small, young, first-timers, and others have been around for decades.
And you used to really have a lot of vintage historic material and a lot of Southwest material as well, but you've kind of moved away from that a little bit, right? You're more...
Yeah, I have, and part of the reason that I did that, Mark, was because it was a way for me to really learn about this area. So I when I first started off here, I started selling Curtises, and that was valuable because it taught me about all the different tribes. If you learn about Curtis, you're going to learn about
That's true.
Where all these tribes were distributed, a little bit about the history of it, and you end up doing reading related to that. And then I got very interested in the first photographs that were made after the Civil War, the survey photographs. So I got way into that area, Timothy O'Sullivan and Jackson and Hillers and Watkins and those guys. But what happened is that kind of ran its course. And a lot for me,
yeah,
a lot of the collectors for that are either dead or dying, and they're not being replaced by younger collectors.
Why do you think that is?
Because younger collectors are, this is a social media thing. They're not going to sit back and study a Curtis, or they don't care about 19th century American stuff. They want something that's a little easier, that's a little bit quicker to comprehend.
Cindy Sherman or Annie Leibovitz kind of thing.
It's that kind of thing, which is normal and natural, and I get that. But it was a natural transition for me out of it. And part of it was just that the clients were drying up for it. the people I had sold it to, they've already got what they need. They're not going to buy anymore. And I just wasn't getting offered very good material anymore. I mean, there was a time where I was getting offered a lot of stuff.
And do you think you weren't getting offered material because it's not out there?
It's not out there.
Yeah.
So there's that. I mean, the material's kind of dried up.
Yeah.
And the market for that, I mean, 19th century American photography is probably worth less than it was 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've probably seen a little bit of that in your field too, because
we see that
because a lot of our clients are the same people from the
Right.
same age group, right? So they get in their 70s and 80s. They're not collecting anymore.
So was your switch from these earlier American and Western photography to more modern contemporary, was that a conscious decision that said, okay, I see a change in the market, I'm going to move into that? Or was this, oh, I really like this stuff more now, I want to do that? Or was it a combination of both?
It happened naturally. It wasn't a plan. I mentioned that the other night, that I didn't sit down and go, okay, now here I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to start doing this. There was a huge overlap. The 19th century and Native American stuff just sort of died a natural death. I sort of ran out of material, or I traded it all to Andy Smith, and I got...
Or me.
Yeah, or you.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I mean, there are people that still work with that material, but it just didn't make sense for me to focus on that at the expense of focusing on stuff where my heart really is, which in photography is post-World War II American. Mm-hmm. I mentioned this the other night. Part of the reason for that is that I lived through that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand this stuff, and I knew a lot of those photographers, many of whom are dead now, and I know the photographers I'm working with. So it makes sense that I would, focus on that area.
And what % of your gallery holdings now are deceased artists versus living artists? Because you have a lot of living photographers,
in photography, right? I mean, there's quite a few dead ones.
Yeah,
so,
right?
Yeah, and they keep dying. So, it's probably about 50-50, I would say. In terms of the actual money that we bring in, it's probably more like 60-40. We're really deep in certain areas like Frederick Sommer and Harry Callahan, Aaron Siskin. These are all people who have passed on. Ansel Adams.
Mm-hmm. How about Dorothea Lange? Do you get many of hers?
Every once in a while, not a lot. I don't get the iconic ones, which I don't get a migrant mother every day.
Right,
but
or White
I've
Man
had a
Bride.
few, FSA things that are not the iconic ones. It's partially it's not an area I'm focused on.
Right.
That's pre-World War II. For the most part, the best pictures are, or right around.
Yeah,
that.
right around 33 to 42.
And it's just that people don't come to me with that material. That's not who. I mean, there are other people in my field that do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy, Richard Moore, up in Oakland, who does a lot with Lange.
Yeah.
And so that's not. And people come to me for other things, but not really that.
So you see, I see everyone's a photographer now, right? Everything is Instagram. There's every form and fashion of photography going on. How is that going to affect your business, that in a good, positive way, a different way? I mean, it's just so ubiquitous now, the amount of people who feel like they're all photographers. How does that affect that?
Well, it's funny. About 3 or 4 years ago, I gave a talk at the Palm Springs Art Fair, and there was like 350 people there. It was a collecting thing, right? And I decided that I would ask this question, like, how many of you right now in this audience either have a digital camera or have a phone that'll take pictures? Who doesn't?
Yeah, it's really who doesn't.
Everybody
right?
had it.
Every single person?
Every single person.
Wow.
And so that's where we are, right?
Right.
I mean, and the fact is, if you've got a decent iPhone, you've got a damn good camera.
Right.
You know what I mean? You do. It's hard to sort through all this stuff because it's all out there. But, being able to take good pictures on your iPhone and actually then create something really great for the wall it's not that easy.
Do you see yourself ever having shows for an artist that's what their medium is the iPhone?
Yes.
Have you done that
Whole
yet?
films are being made of iPhones now.
Yeah, no, I know that. But
I saw a
what
film
for,
with the Loft the other night. The entire film was shot with an iPhone, and it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, what was the film? Do you remember?
I can't remember the name. It's an independent film, but it looked good.
Yeah. Have you had a show for or shown people that have their photos were iPhone photos?
Part of group shows, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do a lot of photo reviews. There, about 25, 30 years ago, Photo Fest in Houston started, and it was the first big event where photographers could sign up and they could come talk to any one of 30 people, me and people in the editing world, people editorial, people from PBS, people from museums, gallery owners.
Right.
And they could bring their portfolio and they'd have a chance to show them to all these different people in one place at one time. Well, that's exploded now.
Oh my
and they have
God.
the similar events in New Orleans, in San Diego, in Portland, in Santa Fe. And I've done reviews in a bunch of these different places.
And so is your job at that to give critiques to these potential photographers and say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like?
Yeah,
or,
my what I try to do is give everybody positive advice. You know, I mean,
right.
So somebody sits down, they have a portfolio, they have 20 minutes with me of undivided
That's a lot.
attention. Yeah, and then every 20 minutes, you know, somebody else is sitting in front of me, which is interesting because every 20, if I'm bored with this person, I only have to deal with it for 20 minutes.
Right.
The people showing their work though have to show their same work over and over and over. And some of them have actually sat down with me on the third day and said, I don't even like my work anymore. Let's talk about something else. I told them, I said, look.
Because of the criticism
I said, look
they're
what
receiving?
you learned. You learned that you're really not ready for this right now. So now the great thing, even though there's this proliferation, there is way more ways to get your work seen. And these events,
But seen, is that equivalent to making money?
No, it's not.
So that's a big difference.
I'll tell you
right?
what's changed, Mark. When I've been doing these reviews for 25 or 30 years,
Right.
And I used to always ask people like, "What's your end game? Why are you here? What do you hope to get out of this?" And the answer used to always be the same: a book. That was the end game.
That's what
everybody
they want.
wants a book. Well, now that's not the answer because if you want a book, you can make it yourself.
Uh-huh.
You know, you can do a print on demand that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And now there are photo books that get published by people who have no track record because they make good photo books. So the market for photo books has exploded.
Is that
now
an ego thing, you think? I mean,
yeah,
why?
well, I mean, I think it's just that you have something you can give to somebody. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you sum up this body of work and you
Right.
have something at the end of it to
Right.
give to somebody. Now, the answer, I keep asking the same question, but the answer is different. Now people want gallery representation because they realize if they really want a book, they can do it themselves. You know,
And they probably come with a book already.
a lot of them just drop books off on me. These are the people
Yeah.
that used to give me slides or something, right?
Right.
Now I leave and I got a stack of books that people did, right? It's crazy.
And so, of all those people that come through, and that's a lot,
Yeah.
were any of them you go, yeah, you should, I need
Absolutely.
to represent you?
Absolutely.
No.
There have been a number of people
That's
like
interesting.
that. And there have been a number of examples of people whose careers started doing this. You know, they went to Photo Fest and a curator saw their work and the next thing you know, they're off and running and they've got a Guggenheim and, you know, I mean, it happens.
So what makes that person, because this occurs to me, of course, with painters, but what for you makes that person go, yeah, that's the criteria I see for me representing that individual?
Well, it's a lot of things. I mean, one of them is that, and this sounds really simplistic, but it's true. If I don't really like this person and I don't feel a kind of connection with them and I don't feel like I can work with them, I don't care what the work looks like.
I do the same thing, Terry, by the way.
I mean
Same
seriously,
thing.
there's too many. I don't deal with high maintenance artists ever anymore. I used to. It's not worth it. There's too many people who are easy to work with. So the first thing is just the sort of like interaction.
Rapport.
If I feel comfortable with them and they seem honest and they seem like they have some integrity and they've got a commitment, then you know that's the first thing to get through. And if the work is really good and it's something I think I can sell that also kind of fits into what we're already doing. I mean, we've shown a number of different people that way. Lisa Robinson's the local photographer I met her at one of these fairs, you know, or one of these reviews, and I bought a print from her, and we've showed her work 3 or 4 times.
And how important is the biography? You know, what they've done, where they've trained, where they've showed.
It's
that kind
almost
of thing.
not. It used to be everything. It's almost nothing now. It's
Interesting.
really gone to where, you know, in the past, you know, you'd look and you say, well, okay, I got my MFA at the University of New Mexico. I've got this and that. I don't care about any of that. I really don't. If that exists, that's great. But at the end of the day, I'm way more interested in the end result. And the end result, I don't even really care how you got to the end result. Like, I'm not a real process guy, so people will, you know, I don't like it when people come in, they want me to tell them all the technical stuff, like exactly how was that made, what camera, what paper, but
Right.
I said, why don't you just look at the picture? I mean,
Right.
that's all I really, I mean, it's interesting to know
Right.
that, and I need to know that, but it's not the most important thing.
It's the image.
I care about results.
It's image and original voice.
So if somebody gets there digitally, fine.
Right. Uh-huh.
You know, that's just a tool.
And it doesn't matter to you if it's digital or film, right?
I care about results.
Yeah, that's right.
And if
that's right.
digital gets you great results, all the more, it's great, right? I mean, That's a question I get asked a lot. Like, what about digital? Well, digital's great. I mean, you know, it's phenomenal.
Right.
There's stuff that exists now that would not exist any other way.
And do you care if it's been manipulated Photoshop-wise or not? Doesn't
not
matter.
if that's part of an artist's aesthetic and what they're doing.
Right.
No, I don't care.
Yeah,
I mean, if they're trying to pass
even,
it off
yeah.
as something, you know, that's, you know, photojournalism or something and it's fake,
Right.
then, yeah, you know, then I would question it. But a lot of people, that's a tool. I mean,
Right.
every single photograph you see is manipulated in some way anyway.
Right, and film
I mean,
for sure.
it's an abstraction. You know, everything they're showing you is at the expense of everything they're not showing you. So there's a lot of subjective stuff that goes into that.
And would you ask on a particular photo, let's say you get a photo and you go, God, I love this photo, but would you say, has that been cropped? Would you ask them these questions? Is this a crop?
Yeah, I can ask them that question,
Yeah.
but it's not important, really.
It's really
I mean,
what the product looks
Yeah.
like, the image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, people that are really good artists that have confidence in their own work, you know, they will convey that to you.
Mhm.
I mean, I tell people when I review the work, look, what I say is only what I say. The person sitting right next to me may love this work or they may hate it.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to do this because this is what you do. And if you have any doubts about what it is that you're showing me, don't show it to me. I mean, you know, and the worst thing is somebody will say, well, you know, this is a work print or it could be better. I say, why are you showing it to me?
Yeah, right.
If it's not perfect and it's not what you believe in, don't show it to me or anybody.
So I know when I look at an artist's portfolio, I do like to see the breadth of what they're doing, because if I just see one or two paintings, they may do one or two great paintings,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the body of the work is really,
Yeah.
and you don't find that to be important to
Well, photographers, just by the nature of the medium,
Uh-huh.
do that. I mean, there's always a bunch of other pictures, you
Yeah.
know. But what I tend to do is, you know, look at a body of work that at the end of the day, if I look at 20 pictures, I should be able to get a sense of who that person is or what they care about, you know. If they sit down, they show me 20 different pictures because they know the history of photography and they've made a picture like this and like this and like
Right,
this.
right.
I'm not at all interested in
Yeah.
that. I'm not interested that you can mimic somebody.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more interested that you have a tight body of work. And what I end up telling people is I use examples like Harry Callahan and McGowan. I said the best pictures those guys made are in their own backyard of their family.
Yeah.
Because nobody else can tell that story like they can. And so you don't have to get all these lenses and go to Southeast Asia,
Right.
you know, or exotic places. I mean, why don't you look in your own backyard first?
Yeah.
And so that's really what I think, you know. So I like an artist to show me a body of work that there's a thread that kind of ties it all together. That's something that they can tell that story and nobody else can. And it's hard to do, you know, but
Yes, it is.
I've had a lot of photographers thank me for telling them that because they didn't think of it that way. I think they think that there's all this stuff out there and they have to be able to do a little bit of everything. And I tell them, forget that. Do one thing really well. You know?
Focus.
Yeah, focus and edit and don't apologize for your work. That's the kiss of death. If somebody says, you know, my work, it's not ready to show, or this print's not quite, you know, it's just like, then don't show. Why are you showing me that?
Yeah, you want confidence in
yeah.
what they're doing, a belief,
Yeah.
and that they have a voice of what they're.
I tell them, if
wanna
you don't
do.
believe in it, why would you expect me
Right.
to, you know?
What do they say when you say
A
that?
lot of people are like, yeah, you're right, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy in Houston that time that set his box down on the third day and said, do you mind if we don't look at the pictures? I said, well, wait, why not? And he goes, my work's not ready to be seen. I'm really sick of talking about it. So those, you know, they have to.
And
show
did you
the
look at it?
No.
Yeah.
Those people have to keep showing their work over and over and over. And after a while, if it's not that great, you're going to find out.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to get sick of saying the same thing over and over. So I always think the photographers that are showing me work have a much harder. They have to have a very thick skin. I have somebody new 20 minutes. They're you know,
Right.
I don't have to worry about it.
And do you care if they're full time doing this, or
Not really.
Not even a question you ask. Is this a
And
full-time
in most
job?
cases, they're not, because you know they're doing these reviews because they're trying to find a foothold someplace. You know, either with a gallery or a publisher or a blog or something. You know, they're looking for advice and a way to sort of enter the field. And now, I mean, entering the field is not what it used to be. It's not just pictures on the wall. It's all kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, there's video.
Yeah.
And have you done any of that too with the?
No, but I'm going to, because I looked at
Yeah.
your website last night and I saw the videos on there.
Yeah.
I think you should accent those more, by the way, because it's kind of, you know, it's in a drop-down list.
Right.
But I looked at the one of you talking about saltillos versus
Right.
Navajo rugs.
Right.
Fabulous.
Thank
know?
you.
I'm going to steal that idea.
No, it's not a stealing. You know what that's about? You know, I want to educate people. So, A, that they make the right decisions when they are buying, whether it's from me or anyone else, I don't care. The more educated the clients are and the people out there, the better it is for me as a dealer, the better it is for you as a dealer, because they're getting the right stuff and they're making good information, good choices. Plus, you want to leave something out there in the world that, if I go, I have a lot of, this is one of the reasons I want to do this, is because I want you, the things that you've experienced, people should know. A young artist, a young dealer can look at this podcast and go, wow, maybe I don't want to do that, or I should do this. And so those videos, I encourage you to make those in your field.
I'm going to.
Yeah, definitely do. I'm going to continue to do that. It's just a time effort. But, I've done about 100, and, I probably have 300 I could do.
But at the end of the day, it's probably saving you time because, for example, you can't sit and spend 4 minutes explaining what you explained on that video. You can just tell them, go look at the video, right?
I do.
So I saw that and I thought, wow, this is really something we need to investigate.
Yeah.
And by the way,
it's called YouTube. It's been out there.
Are those all one take?
Those are all one take.
Well, can I ask you? You must have a script or something? Right?
No script.
No
script.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm even more impressed because those are like 4 or 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking for cuts in there and edits, and I don't see them.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, I have to do them one take.
I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if
I'm
brave enough to. Well.
What does it matter?
Well, I don't know.
We're doing this. My hair's messed up. You got a Smithsonian shirt on. It doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
It might have when I was 20 or 30.
One thing we're going to start doing. Do you know David Olson, who has Zocalo magazine?
Yeah.
He has a business where he does 3D tours. Have you seen those?
No, I haven't.
For $150, Mark, he'll come in and do a 3D tour of your space that will blow your mind.
Yeah.
And we're going to start doing that for every show. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, of course, the main thing's going to happen is going to be virtual reality anyway. So those will actually probably go to the wayside because people are just going to have their headset or whatever, and they're going to be standing there with you watching it and even a more in-depth kind of feeling. If you haven't experienced that, try that. You can do the 3D.
Oh, I got that CNN thing and did that. It's crazy.
It's just, that's where we're headed. And that's the last question I really want to ask. Where is photography headed now? What's the next? You've been doing this 40 years. What's the next just 10 or 15 years? Do you see?
I don't, it's hard to say. I think that, if you look at film, for example, the newest, the greatest thing has been 3D, right? And most of those films are terrible. Every once in a while, there's one that is so good in 3D. And so I've been talking to some photographers who are really, high tech, and they're on the cutting edge, and they're doing these 3D video things where they're inserting photographs into 19th century landscapes. I think holograms are where it's going. The next thing is to be able to take like a famous photograph like a Moonrise Hernandez and be able to walk into it.
Right. That's VR, baby.
And that is possible.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Possible now.
I don't know what that means. It's for my business. I don't know how you sell that because you're selling the thing about what I and you do right now is it's a shared experience to a certain extent. You come in and there's a picture on the wall and a lot of people can see it at the same time. The VR thing is completely a solo experience. So you're taking the shared experience away from somebody.
Unless you're in there with them.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities. I don't know, but whatever it is, I'll embrace it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm kind of trying to run out the clock in a way because I still am an old school guy. I love these beautifully crafted 8x10 silver prints.
Right.
And that's never going to end. And I think for a long time now, there's still going to be people interested in that as there's less and less of it being made. So I think that, I'm always going to embrace whatever the newest thing is, as long as it doesn't take too much time and money. I can't keep up with all of it. And at the same time, I'm going to stay with what got me here,
Right. And it's gotten you very well. Terry Etherton has done very well for Tucson, Arizona.
Well, I'm still here.
And for the photography
that's
world.
That's something, right? 37 years is something, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing
thing. You know
thing.
what it is, Mark? I tell people I absolutely love what I do.
Yeah, that's why we do it.
Think about what we do. I have no idea what's going to happen the rest of the day today.
Yeah.
I could go to the gallery, nothing could happen, or a lot could happen.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? It's never, ever the same.
But you're never not busy, and you're always have something else to do.
There's
like
always
some bunch of videos
you
got to go do now.
It's the summer, and people go, what do you do in the summer? Well, we're planning next year's season.
Yeah.
We're planning for the art fair in Paris. There's always stuff to do.
Right.
You know, and now with the internet, we have a lot of email answers.
Yeah.
You know, constant.
I know it becomes a very important component of your business, correct?
Yeah, it's great though. I mean, think about who you may talk to the rest of the day. You know,
Yeah.
there's no way to know, right?
Won't be as interesting as Terry Etherton.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
It's true. I'm really glad I got the chance to talk to you because
No,
I've known you
thank-
forever. But you know, knowing in person on a business aspect and actually sit down and
You
pick
need
their
to open
brain.
a space downtown now. Is what you need to do.
Yeah, maybe my son will do it. He's right next to you.
Yeah,
Actually, he's
'cause
got a nice studio.
You've seen it's happening down there now. It's
Yeah, no,
unbelievable.
it is true. Tucson is
crazy.
blowing up downtown. But I like my little foothills gallery.
Yeah,
right
I
here.
know you do.
I'll just come down and visit you. Terry Etherton, go visit his gallery. He's got a great show up. It's his 30th anniversary. I went to it. It's fantastic. Don't miss it. Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Mark.
That's fun.
That was fun.
Super fun. I knew you would be fun to have on. I learned so much.
Well, it's I don't know.
I'll tell you what I learned.
I really like what I do.
That you and I are very similar. That's probably why we've always gotten along so well.
I think so.
You do.
I mean,
do
you
your
clearly
business
really
I
like
do.
what you do.
I love what I do.
I mean, and people know that. I mean, they can pick up on that. If
Oh, yeah.
if you're trying to sell them a bill of goods and you're not really behind it,
Yeah.
it's I tell people if I don't really love something, I have a lot of trouble selling it, and people know that.
It's true.
You know what I
I
mean?
mean, if you don't love the material, go to a different business, please.
And what we talked about too, and it is true about artists. Like here, if I can't go and have a couple of beers with somebody, what we do, I mean, we get involved in people's lives. It's not
It's
like
true.
going to buy a car.
No, it's very true.
I don't care who made that car, and I don't care about after I buy it, I'm done. But if you buy a piece of art from somebody and you have a relationship, you're going to end up knowing their families, their
True.
story, because you have to really understand what it is they're doing.
Well, and you want to support your artists. They are family, and that's why you said, and I agree with you, that you need to have some kind of relationship and be able to work with these individuals.
Yeah.
Because if they're jerks, you don't want to deal with jerks.
What's funny though too is like people always go, well, what's your contract look like? And I said, we have consignment contracts, but at the end of the day, if you don't trust somebody, it doesn't mean shit.
So true.
The paper means nothing.
That's right.
I
agree.
So whenever somebody comes at me, they used to with like this crazy contracts, it's like,
Right.
take it back. I'm not.
Right.
I mean, what? I've had people like from the very beginning throw this like great big contract. I'm like, I'm not going to read this. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
I can put this in one page,
Right.
and we can shake hands. If that's not
That's right.
enough, then
Here's your material. This is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do for you, and we have it, and it's insured. Sign
See,
it.
and I think you and I are alike in that we've been around so long publicly. My wife always says, why do you keep doing this? Publicly, part of it has to do with what walks through the door.
Mhm.
It has as much to do with that as anything else. Because I'm public and they know where I am and I keep regular hours and we behave professionally,
Right.
people are comfortable bringing me stuff.
Sure.
Because they know where I am.
Right. You're ethical.
If I was dealing privately out of my house, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's different. And I always say the same thing. Go down and see Terry. He's really great. He's ethical, nice guy. That's where I'd go.
I'd say the same thing
Yeah,
about
no,
here.
it's very true. And you know what? This film's still rolling. We're going to put this on tape.
Oh, great. So,